Last time we talked about this. We talked about quality and how that is measured. We talked about tangibles, issues of reliability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy, and then we also talked about service failures when the service system has a glitch, doesn't quite work right. Then typically that is should flag things so that you start looking at what caused the problem. So an example of that, a service failure, about 2 weeks ago, I had taught a night class. Usually I'm hungry after teaching night classes. I was heading back to the house, rolled up to a Taco Bell, ordered a quesadilla and a crunchy taco supreme for my wife. The quesadilla was mine. Went through the drive-through, turned in my order, and I think the head count was there were 2 cars ahead of me. It took me about 20 minutes with only 2 cars in front of me to get up to the window and pay and get my quesadilla and my crunchy taco supreme. Obviously, in anybody's mind, that is bad. Probably I could have gone back in the restaurant and cooked it myself in 20 minutes. So I'm not sure what the holdup was that night, but typically Taco Bell does a lot better job than that. But that would be an example of a service failure at a point in time. Usually they try to measure the throughput time from the time you put the order in at the chat box, talk box, until you pick it up at the drive-through window in terms of seconds or minutes at the most. Definitely not 20 minutes. So something was going on that night. I don't know what it was. So we also began to talk about this last time. Time, and this is on your page 35. Time relates to 2 different types of performance measures: speed and also variability. So speed in the sense of how fast does it take to get the product into the end user's hands. You also have the issue of processing time, sometimes referred to as queue time or wait time. Now, queue is not a word that we use a lot in the United States. It's a good word. It's an English word. It is used quite a bit in England. So you may hear people say things like, yes, I was waiting in the queue. That means a line. Okay? A queue means a line. So queue time typically means wait time or waiting in line. So there's all kinds of places in operations management where queue time or wait time is important. You could be waiting for some raw material so that you can start working on a project. You have something that's done at workstation 2, and then workstation 3 has to wait until they receive the partially finished product from workstation 2. So there's wait time there built into the system. There's the queue time for getting it out the door and into the hands of the final user. How long does that take? So typically this idea of processing time, from the time you start making something until it is ready to go into the hands of the final user, typically that's called throughput. Throughput, throughput time. And basically, if your throughput time is too long, you're burning money. So there's been this initiative in operations management for some time now to reduce your processing time or to reduce your throughput time. Then the other thing they mention here is the issue of variability. And this is kind of in paragraph number 2 under time on page 35. An important part of measuring time is the variance. That means the deviation around the average time. As unanticipated variability is often leads to an unhappy customer experience. Variability. So you have an average time, and then it could be a little bit less or a little bit more. There's the variation, typically measured using a statistical process of standard deviation. Let me give you an example of variability. Let's talk about Wally World. So one of the geniuses behind Walmart's falling prices, there's a lot of things behind that, but one of the things that's behind that is their distribution system, their ability to move goods from point A to point B very efficiently. And they want as little variation as possible in the movement of those goods. So a classic example is at Walmart supercenters. They will have 18-wheeler trucks pull up in the back, which we usually don't see, and it's unloading product into those stores. Now, they obviously want those trucks to be, quote, on time. If they tell them 10 a.m., that means they want them to be there at 10 a.m. Now, they obviously don't want them to be late, because if they get there at 10:30, it's going to mess up the schedule for the whole rest of the day, right? Because they've got other trucks then that would be waiting. So they don't want them to be late. But, you know, Walmart also doesn't want them to be early, because if they get there at 9:30 and they're not supposed to be there till 10, then that creates a problem. They are mucking up the works, so to speak. So they have a very high standard in terms of this issue of variability. They don't want you to be real early, and they don't want you to be real late. If they tell you 10 a.m., that's what they mean. They want you to pull up exactly at 10 a.m. And they run a very tight ship in terms of controlling the time for those distributions, and they're very good at it. They're incredibly good at it. They use a lot of software to manage the whole process. So that's just one example of variability in the delivery process. Okay, let's move on here. Let's talk about flexibility. This is at the bottom of 35. Flexibility means just kind of like a human being. Some people are incredibly flexible and they can bend themselves into all kinds of shape because they do exercising and they keep their muscles toned and they keep those tendons stretched out, etc. But then some people are really stiff and they can barely move anything because they're not very flexible. So when we say flexibility for a company or an organization, we mean their ability to adapt real quickly and effectively to any kind of new requirement that's put on them. So if they suddenly have to produce a new product, can they do that? If they have to ramp up their volume, can they do that? If they need to decrease it, can they do that? So you have goods and service design flexibility. The ability to develop a wide range of customized, keyword, customized goods or services to meet different or changing customer needs. So in other words, to what degree is the company flexible enough that when demand increases, that would be a volume flexibility, they can increase their production, but they can also diversify and be really quick and change over and produce something totally different from what they were doing yesterday. So flexibility takes on kind of this dimension of customization, but also of volume flexibility, the ability to respond quickly to changes in the volume and the type of demand. Now, if you think about, let's say, this is always a good illustration, a back of the house operation in a typical commercial restaurant in the kitchen area, they kind of have to have this flexibility. They have to be able to flex and maybe they're serving breakfast, maybe they're serving a lunch menu, but then some people want a more hearty meal for the dinner menu. So they're having to customize and kind of work on the fly. Now it's within a range, obviously. They're not going to cook you lamb if they don't have lamb on the menu, but they're still having to customize a wide range of products. And then you get into volume flexibility. Can they handle a rush? You know, when the bus pulls up and the whole soccer team gets off the bus and invades the restaurant, can they suddenly gear up and serve 50 people that are coming in all at one time? So that's kind of the idea of goods and service flexibility and also volume flexibility. And by the way, the backstory on this, which they don't really get into this too much in your chapter, but it really is true. Everything spanning here from the discussion on 34, quality, time, flexibility, innovation, and learning, is that in the old days, which was back in the previous, for this discussion, in the previous century, it was kind of acceptable if a company became good on one or two dimensions. Let's say they could be competitive if they offered a really good price, but they weren't very flexible and they weren't very fast. But that was okay because they could offer a good price. And then you had another company that would say, well, there's trade-offs here. We can get it to you really fast, but if we do, it's going to cost you more. So they were competitive on speed, but not on price. So you had all these competitive dimensions, things like flexibility, speed, variability. Can you change? Sustainability. Are you able to keep this up? And so companies would kind of pick one or two dimensions, and then that would be what they really focused on. Well, that's all gone now, pretty much. Now what has happened is you would say that the performance curve has shifted. So now not only do you have to be fast, you have to have a reasonable price, you have to be flexible, you have to customize, you have to compete on multiple dimensions simultaneously. So this has just happened since this century and since kind of the end of the previous century, that there is a much higher expectation of companies and what their acceptable performance is. And this is just one of those issues, flexibility. So let me give you an example of this. I talked about this company the other day, I believe. It's called Zara. Some of you might be familiar with this, some of you might not. The photo on the left there, I think I actually snapped that with my Apple iPhone when I was at a meeting at the Galleria in Houston that's connected there to the one of the conference centers. And my wife and I were just strolling around in the mall and saw Zara. And I talked about this in class, so I snapped a picture. The other one on the right, I'm pretty sure I got that as stock photography from like the Zara website. But let me tell you about Zara. They are a classic example of competing on speed, price, and flexibility. So the backstory, Zara is a retail chain of high fashion boutiques. They're based in northern Spain. They have about 400 or so stores in 25 countries. They have sales of somewhere around $2 billion in terms of US dollar denominations per year. So obviously, you know, they sell a lot of stuff. They have their delivery speed and their flexibility are considered incredibly high. And by delivery speed, I mean from conception of the idea for the garment, just the idea, until it is ready to go into the hands of the ultimate customer. That's what we mean by throughput time. That is their delivery speed. They are incredibly fast. They're also very flexible. They can almost change on a dime, almost like a really good running back. You see somebody about to tackle him, and he just turns on a dime and goes around them. They're incredibly agile. Their floor salespeople use handheld computers. They're constantly getting feedback from customers. So right now, a sales associate on the floor of a Zara store would be talking to one of their loyal customers and asking them, what would you really be anticipating for next summer? Because, you know, they have to start really early in terms of some of their product development. So they're always gathering ideas. What do you think you would like to see next summer, or even, let's say, in early spring? That information flows daily to their headquarters, and I think it's around the Madrid area. Now, here's the big kicker. Their cycle time, which is throughput time, from conception of the idea, once they get the idea for a new piece of clothing, until it is finished and ready to go into the hands of a customer, is 2 weeks. 2 weeks. They can think about it, they can design it, they can order the material, they can cut it with lasers, by the way. They have all these high-tech manufacturing facilities. They can package it, they can get it out to their stores, and it only takes them about 14 days to do that. Now, in comparison, if you look at Gap, they are 10 times as fast as Gap. That means Gap takes about 5 months. Zara can do it in 2 weeks. Now, if you're in the fashion business, which not every company is, but these companies are, if you're in the fashion business, time is of the essence. You know, some people wouldn't be caught dead wearing something from last year's fashion, right? So it's all about timing and innovation and new things. So let's just say Gap decides to mimic what Zara is doing. So they see Zara come out with something brand new, and Gap says, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's do that ourselves. Well, by the time Gap comes out with it, Zara is already 2 or 3 miles ahead of them, right? They've already gone on to other stuff. Now, I'm sure some of you, and I don't know your backgrounds. I know Laurel, did you run track in high school, cross country or something? One of those two, Laurel?
Yes, I ran track.
Ran track. So let's say Laurel is fast. And there may be some other people listening to my voice that would be fleet of foot. But really, it kind of depends on who you're up against, right? So let's say, does anybody in the listening audience know who Usain Bolt is? Usain Bolt, B-O-L-T. Anybody know who Usain Bolt is?
Heard the name, but I don't know him.
Stormy said, do you know who it is, Stormy? No? Nobody knows who Usain Bolt is. Okay, so Usain Bolt is one of the fastest people in the world. He's a sprinter from Jamaica. Next Olympics, be on the lookout for Usain Bolt. If he is not the fastest man in the world, he is probably in the top 5 and has been for several years. I watched him run in one Olympic race, like the 100-meter race, and he was so fast. Now, this was just one of the preliminaries building up to the final. He was so far ahead of everybody else that as he approached the finish line, he was looking over his shoulder, smiling to see how far behind they were. He's that fast. So some of you might be really good until we put you up against Usain Bolt, right? And by the time you get out of the blocks, he's already 10 yards down the track. He's that fast. Well, that's Gap competing against Zara. They will never catch them unless they radically change how they're doing business, and most likely they will not. So just an example of a company competing on these new competitive dimensions: speed, price, and flexibility. Okay, let's move on. You may or may not have heard of this company. It's called the National Bicycle Industrial Company, abbreviated sometimes as NBIC. Does anybody ride bicycles for either leisure or definitely like trail bikes or anything like that? Mountain biking? Anybody do that sort of thing? I'm just curious. Anybody in the audience do that? Any bicycle people? Well, apparently not. And that may be good because I don't know if you realize this or not. We've talked about supply chain management. I don't know if you followed the news on this. Bicycles have been very difficult to find, extremely difficult to find. Because guess what happened during the quarantine? Everybody was staying home. They weren't driving their cars. So by the way, worldwide pollution went down during the quarantine because people weren't driving their cars. So what were they doing? They were riding bicycles for exercise, sometimes to work and back, get the fresh air, that sort of thing. So I had heard this, that bicycles were hard to come by. I didn't quite believe it until I walked in a Walmart Supercenter store during the quarantine, went over to the area where the bicycles were, and guess how many were on the shelves? There were 0 on the shelves. And yeah, Lawrence just posted there, and the bicycle repair shops have been slammed because people are either buying new bicycles or they're getting their old ones repaired. So hard to come by. Hopefully the supply chain has caught up a little bit. Larry said he sold 3 old bicycles for a bunch of money. Yeah, there was a huge demand for bicycles, and I think there's still that ripple effect. It's still going on. But when we talk about NBIC, we're not talking about people that ride bicycles just for, around the block or to get a little exercise or to give little Susie, the 11-year-old, a new bicycle. That's not what we're talking about. These are serious bicyclers. So this is for people that, race competitively, that take it up as a hobby. They're riding, maybe multiple miles per week, that sort of thing. So it is located in Osaka, Japan. They sell their products under multiple brand names. One of them, I think, is this Panasonic brand. Let me tell you about this company, National Bicycle Industrial Company, a Japanese company. So they are a Japanese factory producing customized bicycles. Now, the backstory on this is called mass customization. Now, that is a little bit of a catchy phrase because historically, if you look at the whole gamut of production in the United States, we've had 2 big concepts: mass production and customization. And the 2 did not meet. So mass production means you have a store that turns bicycles, a company that turns out bicycles and manufactures bicycles. So they mass produce those, meaning there is no customization. It is like, 26-inch bicycles that are all red, and they make a ton of those, okay? Then you have the other idea of customization. And customization means it's built to order. You want certain specifications, we will make you a bicycle according to your specifications, okay? Now, obviously, in the old days, customization mass production reigned because that was cheap, because cheaper by the dozen. Customization was expensive because it took a lot of time to customize the product. But now you have something going on in manufacturing called mass customization. That simply means you now have companies that will customize a product for anyone. And not only for the masses, but they can do it fast and they can do it for a reasonable price. So mass customization is starting to replace customization and mass production. So back to the example here. The customers are fitted for 11,231,862 possible variations. They produce mass customization. That is an individualized product for anyone. Their computer-aided design, their CAD system can construct 8 million variations of 18 different models, either for racing or road or mountain bikes. Now you would think, my gosh, if they do that, does it take them a long time? Their assembly time is 150 minutes per bicycle. That's what, 2.5 hours? In other words, they can start in scratch, and in 150 minutes, boom, they can produce a bicycle. They are so fast at this that they actually delay the shipment of the product. They could get it into the hands of the customer really fast because they can make them so fast. And by the way, a lot of this is even hand done. It's not done by robots. A lot of it is hand assembled. They've got their act down. They can do it really fast. So what do? Well, they take a computer image of your body, your torso, and then that bicycle, they're going to measure, the length of your torso, from your abdomen up to your neck, your arm reach, your weight, the stretch of your legs, and then they're going to custom build the bicycle to fit your particular physical physique. That's amazing. And they can do it in 150 minutes, and they do it at a competitive price. And they're so fast at it that they don't want you to get it too fast, because they would actually prefer that you anticipate it, right? It's kind of like you order something from the Amazon and you say, I'm getting my new product in and it's going to take 5 days. And so for 5 days, you're thinking about getting it, right? And what do you do during those 5 days? You talk to other people about it. Hey, in 5 days, I'm getting my such and such. So they want that word of mouth spread. They want to build up that anticipation. So they have to let you have a little time to kind of drool and want it and talk to other people about it. They have a thank you note that is mailed with the drawing of the bike right after the order is received to kind of build up the anticipation. And then they send you a bicycle birthday card every anniversary. Mass customization for all. I just think this is kind of an incredible idea. And by the way, here is where you're going to see it coming in multiple arenas. So this is bicycles. I think it is already being done with textbook publishing. It has been done for several years. So I have been on the phone before with representatives from McGraw-Hill and told them that I wanted a customized book. They built the book as they took over my computer, and we were accessing databases, and they were pulling in material. How many chapters do you want? I want 12. What topics do you want? I want these topics. They were pulling in these chapters. The woman was in Nebraska. I was sitting in my office here in Kilgore. We even chatted about the weather in Nebraska. It took us maybe 20 minutes to build a customized textbook from scratch, pulling in information from multiple sources. So you see it in the publishing arena. You see it with bicycles. And I'll tell you where I think you're going to see it next is with medications. At some point, because of all the research that's being done on the genetic makeup of human beings, My guess is you will no longer go in and they will prescribe you a generic amoxicillin. No, they will prescribe a medication that fits your particular genetic makeup. It will be customized for your body. So we see it in even suits, men's suits. There's an English company. You can go in, they scan your body. You don't get a 40 long suit. They make the customized three-piece wool suit for your specific body dimensions. And they can do it fast, just like the bicycles, and they can do it at a relatively reasonable price. Mass customization. So that's what's going on. Now let's move on to a little bit about innovation and learning. This is on your page 36. The ability to create new and unique goods and services that will delight customers and create a competitive advantage. Innovation. So who's known for innovation? Well, there's a lot of companies that are. One company that I think is very interesting is 3M Corporation. 3M Corporation. So 3M is kind of the adhesives people. They make all sorts of adhesives. They're the ones that make the little yellow sticky notes, you know, that you can just, let's see, I've got one right here that I'm using. The little yellow sticky note, I just took it off the page and guess what? It didn't rip the paper. And now I can just stick it back on there and voila, genius, wish I'd have thought of that. Where did that come from? 3M Corporation, the lifeblood of that company is innovation. They allow their research scientists to just play in the laboratories and come up with new ideas because they have to have a constant flow of brand new ideas to basically stay ahead in the marketplace. Now, sticky notes, and some of you may know the story behind this. It's just kind of an interesting story. One of their employees sang in the church choir. He was frustrated because he would have a hymnal and then he would take little pieces of paper and mark different pages in the hymnal of the songs that they were supposed to sing on Sunday morning. However, when he would flip the page, guess what would happen? The little piece of paper that he had stuck in there would go flying off and land on the floor, and he'd pick it up, stick it back in there. And that's when he had the idea, wouldn't it be great if I could take a little piece of paper and stick it on that page, but then when I want it off, I can pull it off, it won't damage the paper. And that's where the first idea for sticky notes came from. Of course, 3M is the market leader in that. You can buy them from other places, but they kind of own that product, right? So innovation. And then you have learning. Creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge. In fact, knowledge is now put forth as one of the new competitive advantages. And this is not just knowledge. Companies are protecting this knowledge. They don't want the brain drain. They don't want people coming in and then taking all of that knowledge with them, right? So what do? They capture it in databases so that when employee X leaves, the knowledge does not walk out the door with them, right? So innovation and learning, two hallmarks of what's going on with companies now. Let's talk about productivity and operational efficiency. This is over on your page 37. So productivity, the ratio of the output of a process to its input. So they give you a formula here. Productivity is equal to the quantity of output divided by the quantity of input. And there's a lot of examples of this. So, for example, let's just take a college classroom. So if you're very productive as a faculty member, that means the input would be the faculty's salary, obviously, physical resources such as a room, technical resources, computers, different furnishings that you might use, connections, you have to pay for all that, cameras. And then the quantity of the output is typically in a class that is measured as semester hours. So for example, one student taking 1 3-hour credit class will generate 48 semester credit hours. Now, why is that important? Well, guess what? The state pays colleges based on that amount of production. So you, as one student taking this course, you generate 48 semester credit hours for the college. The state looks at that and says, we're going to pay you X amount of money for those 48 hours. So in other words, the more students that a faculty person has in class and the more courses that they teach, the more revenue they are generating for the college. So that's an example of productivity. Now you could have a paper mill. You have raw material comes in the door, which is typically trees that have been cut down. And then you're going to process those. You're going to chip it all up. You're going to make it into paper, and then you have tons of paper would be the output. The input would be the raw materials that come in the front door. So productivity is this ratio of the output of a process compared to the input. And then you want to be efficient. Operational efficiency. The ability to provide goods and services to customers with minimum waste and maximum use of your resources. Minimum waste and maximum use of your resources. In other words, efficiency is all about getting as much done as possible with as little resources as possible. Okay. Now, what are those costs that go into that? Labor, that's usually the biggest one. Materials, cost of buildings. Why is this important? Well, this is important because if you have an organization that is inefficient, not efficient, they're consuming too many organizational resources to produce the output. And that means if you have a competitor and they become more efficient, what they're going to do is pass you up, because they can either offer a lower price or they have extra money to file back into research and development. Now, I've said this many times, and this is true. The United States, in general, as an economy, we are incredibly efficient. We can do so much with so little, right? And it's becoming even more that way because we're automating so many of our production systems that now people go get to do other work. They don't have to actually do the production work, right? Because we have automation that does the production work. That makes us more efficient. Now, just realize that that is not true of every nation of the world, and that is not true of every economy of the world. There are some that are incredibly inefficient, using way too many resources to produce the same outcome. So a classic case is the former Soviet Union. In the former Soviet Union, most people, and this is Russia plus all the satellite operations that used to be part of the USSR, and that would include Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, all the stands, Ukraine, example. In the former Soviet Union, everybody's first language is Russian because Moscow made sure of that. So everybody, their first language is Russian. Okay, some of them speak English, some of them speak other languages, but Russian is the go-to language. There is no word in the Russian language for efficiency. It's not even there. And guess what? They're not very efficient in anything that they do. They will use way too many resources to produce simple things. Let me give you an example of that. I was teaching English, business English to Russian speakers in the former Soviet Union. This was a few summers ago. And I had some time off, so I went to a large department store. It would make the Dillards in Longview look small. It was about 5 stories tall. Had escalators where you could go from one floor to the next. And I noticed as I kind of made my way up the escalators going to the different stores that I would pass a department, let's say the jewelry department. And there would be 2 people standing there, salespeople, standing there at the jewelry department, just standing there, waiting supposedly to help customers. Then you would walk like 30 feet, and there would be the shoe department. And there were 2 people standing at the shoe department, just kind of waiting, for a customer to come up. And then you would walk another 30 feet to say home goods, and there were 2 or 3 people standing there. And I thought, oh, these people do not understand retail management. They have this huge cost of labor to kind of position people at every one of these departments. They do not understand the idea of being a capitalist, using your capital efficiently. Now, why was it that way? Well, because it was the holdovers from communism. Because in communism, the state ran everything. They gave you a job. They told you to go here and do X, and you stood there and did it. If you did a good job, you got a salary. If you did a bad job, you still got a salary. There was no incentive to be productive. It's just a very inefficient system, right? And that is just characteristic of some of the economies of the world, especially in the former Soviet Union. They just consume vast amounts of resources to produce the same product in the United States. It wouldn't take us much at all. So no wonder we are the largest economy in the world, right? Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about, real quickly, the triple bottom line. This is over starting on 37 and following. The measurements of sustainability related to environmental factors. So if you want to read about this, look at the bottom of 37. The triple bottom line refers to the measurement of environmental, social, and economic. Environmental, social, and economic sustainability. That's where the idea of 3 comes in. Environmental regulations usually require organizations to measure and report compliance, but many companies go beyond what is minimally required. So you're into issues here about energy consumption, recycling, resource conservation activities, air emissions, solid and hazardous waste rates and disposal, etc. Environmental factors, kind of protecting Mother Earth. And then you have social factors. This is a little bit more over on 38. The consumer and workplace safety, community relations, corporate ethics. Do you lie, cheat, and steal?